As your child gets older, there will come a day when he will throw a major fit because he's trying to communicate with you and you're not understanding what he's trying to say. You might be understanding, but since he can't communicate it, he is sure you don't. This is very normal. It's a normal part of development, and it can actually happen much younger than you may think. It can happen as young as 6 months old. Children can understand far more than they can communicate. So he understands more than he is capable of communicating with you. The good news is that I have 7 tips to help you get through this stage. You don't simply have to wait it out and wait for him to be able to communicate with you. You can get through it faster, and I will show you how today. Hello and welcome. If you are new here, my name is Valerie. I have been blogging since 2007 at babywisemom.com. I love to help parents work through any of their parenting problems. I have 4 children ranging currently in ages from 8 to 15 years old. My number one tip number 1, is to teach your baby or toddler sign language. It doesn't matter what age your child is, if they're old enough to be throwing fits because they can't communicate with you, they are old enough to learn to do sign language. You can start as young as 6 months old. If you have a 14-month-old who you've never taught sign language, it's not too late. You can absolutely teach signs. So if you have a child who's always mad because he wants help with something, you can teach him how to sign the word help. Children can sign before they can talk, so you can get a 7-month-old responding to you or communicating with you through sign language. I do have a blog post all about teaching your baby sign language, so be sure to check that out if you'd like more information. My second tip is to require effort from your child to communicate. Do not allow the fit to be the communication effort. As I said in the beginning, you might know exactly what your little one is trying to tell you, but don't give in to the fit. Require some communication effort. I have an example. Brinley would come to me and she'd want to be picked up. She would throw a fit about it. I knew she wanted up, and I could tell from her nonverbal cues, which we'll talk about in a bit, that she wanted up, but I required that she communicate up to me before I picked her up. She couldn't just come up to me and start throwing a fit because she wanted picked up. She needed to communicate that to me through a communication effort. As you require this communication effort, make sure at first you use grace. Don't expect the communication to be perfectly pleasant and with perfect manners. They'll probably respond to this requirement of communication with anger. For example, Brinley would come to me wanting up and she would just cry and say, "Bah, bah," and that's how she communicated up to me. And I accepted that. Another example is with Brayden. When I would require him to say please when he wanted something, I had taught him to say please. He knew how to sign please. If he was frustrated with the fact that I was requiring a please from him, I would remind him, "Oh, how do you ask?" And he would slap himself because he was upset by being required. And that's okay. In the beginning, allow some grace with these emotions. Like, they're already frustrated because they feel like they're not being understood. So allow that communication effort to be accepted, even if it's not the most polite. As your child gets older and gains skills in, you know, they're capable of communicating without the fit, then you can start working on the heart and require a polite communication effort instead of any communication effort. Also, make sure you respond when your child tries to communicate with you. If your child is communicating and asking you in some way, making an effort to communicate, don't say, "Oh, just a minute. Oh, hold on." Respond right away so you reward that effort immediately so they learn the effort to communicate gets results rather than the fit. If you wait until there's a fit before you respond, then they quickly learn fits are what get me a response. My third tip is to learn your child's communication. whether that's nonverbal skills or words said incorrectly. Like I said before, Brinley, when she wanted up, she said buh. I knew that that meant up. So learn what your child is trying to communicate to you. Your child may be doing nonverbal cues that aren't official sign language, or you haven't officially taught, but that's how your child has learned or made an effort to try to communicate something to you. So make sure that you recognize and pay attention to what your child's nonverbal cues and incorrect words mean so that you can respond to those and reward that effort of communication rather than fits. Also, get to know your child's pre-fit signs. So your child will probably have certain things that lead up to, okay, now there's going to be a tantrum. So if you're wanting to avoid this tantrum and fit throwing, you want to recognize what happens leading up to that fit so you can help diffuse the situation before it turns into a fit. My fourth tip is helpful with people of any age, but that is to repeat what they have communicated to you. So if your child wants up and they come to you and say, buh, and you say, oh, you want up? So even if you can't pick your child up right away, you respond and acknowledge, oh, you want up? Okay, I need to finish this one thing and then I will pick you up. Thank you for asking so nicely. So repeat so that they know, yes, my mom gets it. My mom knows exactly what I want. She understands, because often the tantrums, these frustration tantrums and fit throwing from your nonverbal child come because they feel like they're not understood. They get super frustrated. So when they know you understand, then it helps them to be able to work on being patient themselves. Also, sometimes you may get it wrong. Sometimes you may think they want up. That's not what they wanted. So if you say, oh, you want up? And they'll say no, and try to communicate again so that you're sure you both get it. You both know you're on the same page. You want to stay calm as you're repeating. Don't say, I know you want up. And say, oh, you want up? So make sure you're calm, you're firm, you're cool, you're under control. Eye contact is a great tool when you are repeating things. It's a great communication tool no matter who you're talking to or what you're talking about. But as you're repeating what your child just communicated to you, whether it was through words or nonverbal language, make eye contact. If your child throws a fit, make sure they understand fits don't work. If you throw a fit, we're not going to do it. If you throw a fit, I'm not going to pick you up. I do have a video and a blog post with lots of tips on responding to tantrums and discipline tips, so make sure you check that out for more on this topic. Along the same line of thinking, my fifth tip is do not give in to the fit. Do not give in. When you give in to the fit, your child learns fits are what work. If you don't want fits to appear in the future, you need to make it so that the fits are not rewarded. That's one reason I require communication, so that they learn the fit isn't what works, the communication is what works. And this is why teaching sign language is super helpful, because they're learning that sign language in times of non-conflict. You're not teaching how to sign please in the moment when your child's supposed to ask please. You sign that before your child's upset or frustrated. So when it's time to require communication, you know your child's capable, your child knows that he's capable, and you're able to require it, and you're able to reward communication rather than fits. Also, you need to be sure that you don't say no unless you mean it. Don't say no just because you don't feel like it, but then when the fit starts, think, oh, well, that's fine. I don't really care if that happens. Like, we can do that. So you need to be sure that you don't say no unless you mean no. Now we're talking about children who are nonverbal, old babies, young toddlers, maybe even some older toddlers. We're not talking about preteens, teenagers. Sometimes you tell older children no, you get more information, and then you realize, oh, okay, that can actually be a yes. That's fine in those older ages. Right now we're talking about these young little people. So only say no if you intend to follow through the no. Give yourself time to think before you respond. It's okay to take 10 seconds to think it through before you say yes or no to something. Okay, tip number 6 is to be patient and give this time. Once you start teaching communication, requiring communication, not giving into the fits, it's not going to mean that tomorrow things are all better and there's no more tantrums. That's not going to happen. It takes time to change behavior. It takes time for your child to learn to communicate and for your child to realize and learn, like, oh, when I communicate, then things are better, things are smoother. That's when I get rewarded. I would plan on using the first 5 tips I've talked about in this video for about a month before you see real improvement. You will see some improvement over time as you work on it, but don't expect like this big old change for about a month. Give it time and let you and your child get used to this new way. My 7th and final tip is to make sure the whole family's on board. Make sure your spouse is on board, and make sure if you have other children that the siblings of this child are on board. One of the hardest things is for me, with my 4th child, was having the 3 older siblings. They didn't want to listen to her cry. They didn't like it when she was upset. They knew what she wanted, and so they wanted to hurry and stop the little tantrum she was throwing, and they would give her what she wanted right away. I had to sit them down and say, hey, here's what you're doing, here's how you need to do it instead, and here's why. And if you do this, then you will see that the tantrums stop. There will be fewer tantrums overall if you just stick to it for a little while. So they gave that a try, and then they started to see, oh, it is better when we do this. So if you have other family members who are around your child a lot, you want them to all be on the same page. Now we have like grandparents who like to spoil, and if they're not with your child consistently all the time, then that's not a huge concern. Your big concern is people who are with your child consistently. All right, that wraps up our video on the screaming nonverbal baby or toddler. If you'd like more information and more details, I do have a written out blog post that has more examples and more information that you can check out to get even more help and info on this. As always, thanks for watching.